Andrew Hopper over at WeGo Health. I spend a lot of my time focused on analytics, which means a lot of time going over the metrics for our own site and making improvements based on what we're seeing behind the scenes. Today in the presentation, I hope to share some of my analytics knowledge with you to discuss analytics and address some of the most common questions about metrics. And to do that, I'll be looking at a health activist blog as an example. I'm joined today by Jackie, MS and ulcerative colitis health activist, who volunteered to share her blog with us. Jackie, thanks for joining us. Can you tell the folks a little about yourself?
Thanks, Andrew. I'm really pumped about learning more about analytics because my knowledge is limited. As Andrew mentioned, I'm an MS and a UC health activist. I spend all of my time writing on my own blogs and other blogs. I have a blog for MS called MS Understood, and then my blog for UC and J-Pouchers is called Blood, Poop, and Tears.
That's I love that blog name. It's great the way you're kind of getting out there and sharing this information with the community. So let's help other folks do that better and help you do that better by looking a little bit about how we can use data to kind of decide when our blogs are successful and what kind of content is popular. So we're going to use MS Understood today to give us a basic understanding of blog analytics. And Jackie brought us some great questions based on her experience as a blogger. So we'll discuss those and what she's heard from other bloggers also. So Jackie, where would you like to start?
Well, I remember when I first started out blogging, and one of the questions that I get the most often is what blog platform to use and if people should try to use Google Analytics or not. I have different blogs and different platforms for different reasons, and all of them have pros and cons. And actually, I'm in the process of switching platforms for one of my blogs. But when it comes to analytics, I'm not exactly sure which ones have the best built-in or which ones should be better off used with Google Analytics.
Okay, that's a question that we happen to know a little bit about over here at WeGo Health. So all of the blogging platforms I know have some form of analytics that they offer with their blog, and it will be important to pay attention to these for your blog. Typically, the platform analytics that are built in don't offer a lot of insight into blogging activity. So a health activist will probably want more in-depth data as they continue to build their blog audience over time. A great tool for that is Google Analytics, because it offers people the chance to focus on and drill into just about any metric. And it also has the advantage of being attached to the domain name of your blog or your blog URL so that it can be switched from platform to platform and you have historical data available regardless of what platform you choose to use. With platform-specific analytics or analytics built into Blogger or Tumblr, when you switch to WordPress.org, for example, you'll lose that historical data or there will be disconnect, so it'll be hard to see how your readers like the new platform or how it helps you or hurts you. The other bonus of Google Analytics is that it offers you a chance to customize many reports and get exactly the information you want in a variety of different formats. So even if you're not looking to track something specific, you can also use Google Analytics for very basic metrics. So Google Analytics will give you the metrics available in the blogging platform plus a lot more when you're ready to dig into that.
I do love Google Analytics and everything that it offers. It shows so much information, but I know that for a lot of people, digesting what Google Analytics can offer and sort of sorting through the mess and the complications that is Google Analytics can be really overwhelming for new people.
Yeah, I hear that a lot and could not agree with you more. It's just an amazingly powerful tool. So it can be very, very overwhelming when you're not familiar with it. But what we want to do today is give everyone enough information to get started and help them know where to begin. So we'll talk a little bit about what we really need to focus on, about installation goals, and some specific pieces of information that are important to bloggers, and then how more complicated data is available. But you only really need to look at that when you're ready to focus more on analytics, or you have more nuanced and complex questions. So, Jackie, you've used a number of different platforms, and could you share a little bit with everyone about your experience with different platform analytics, and particularly Google Analytics kind of compatibility?
Sure. Like I said before, I have different blogs on different platforms. The one that I use most frequently right now is on WordPress, and the other one is on a little known platform called Weebly, but I am in the process of switching that one over to Tumblr. I found that there are huge pros and cons for any platform, but for WordPress, WordPress.com, they have a pretty decent um, built-in set built-in set of analytics. It's not perfect, it's not as detailed as Google, but it is better than some of the other ones that I've seen on built-in other platforms. WordPress is great too because they have a mobile app and you can also have multiple users for your blog, which is great too, so you don't all have to have the same login. But when you use .com, you have to pay for every kind of upgrade. Like if you want to use your own domain, you have to pay. If you want to customize the CSS or HTML, you have to pay. So it can get a little pricey if you just want to have basic things like a domain and a customized blog. Weebly was a good idea in that it's free and it offers pretty decent, easy customization without knowing CSS or HTML, but it's super glitchy. The server is down a lot, and it's just a really horrible site. So that's why I'm switching over to Tumblr, which I really like. Tumblr is another free service, and it offers 100% customization. It allows you to use Google Analytics. It allows you to use your domain name for free. So overall, I mean, it sounds like the best option. However, Tumblr isn't your traditional style blog in that it allows people to follow you and not necessarily comment on your blog. So the usual feature for commenting is not there. You can add it with a plugin. You can get comments on your Tumblr blog, but it's an extra step. As for Blogger, I have used it in the past. None of my blogs are currently on Blogger, but I kind of feel Blogger is like the Kodak of blogs in the sense that it's really user friendly, it's easy to use, it's very basic, as opposed to like a souped up Canon that you have to know a little bit more about it to use. Blogger is a great place to start and to get into blogging, but I feel like if you want a more custom blog or a blog that might give back more to you as the writer, you might look somewhere else other than Blogger.
Wow, great overview, Jackie. It sounds like you've had a lot of fantastic experience with different platforms, and I'm sure this is an experience that many health activists have had too, and they'll appreciate hearing from others why one platform works for them and another might not work as well. So each platform is a little different sometimes, and sometimes dramatically different. Unfortunately, we can't cover them all in this presentation, but we'll look at a few of the more popular platforms that many bloggers use. So we're going to start today by showing you how to install Google Analytics on a WordPress.org blog or blogger. For others, you should be able to find instructions either in the help section of your blogging platform, in the help section of Google Analytics, or by searching for your blog platform and the term installing Google Analytics in your favorite search engine. So before you install Google Analytics, it's a service that you need to sign up for. So you'll need to go to googleanalytics.com and add your blog URL. Next step, once you're signed up, is to put the analytics code on your blog. So to do that on WordPress.org, you'll need to install a plugin that will help you track your blog using Google Analytics. You can do that by navigating to the plugins screen on your WordPress dashboard and installing the plugin for Google Analytics. Once you activate it and insert the Google Analytics code, you'll be ready to go. For Blogger, you'll need to add a section of HTML code from Google into your Blogger template, and there is ample documentation on how to do that on the Blogger help section. So now that you have Google Analytics installed on your blog, I wanted to show you guys a few key metrics to track. But before we do that, here's a quick overview of some terms I'll be using. It's important to understand what you're looking at and what's important. We'll start with the basics, but if you're interested in more, Google has a fantastic glossary already set up. We'll give you that URL at the end of the presentation so that you can check that out on your own. So the terms that are really important when looking at Google Analytics are the bounce rate, which shows you the percentage of visitors where the visitor only views one page on your site. This happens when someone comes to your blog homepage but doesn't click any other pages, or navigates from a search engine result to a page and then doesn't view any other pages on your blog. A visitor is representative of a person coming to your site. And there's an important distinction to make between visitors and unique visitors. So a unique visitor tells you the number of visitors during a specified time period. Unique visitors does not count return visits as an additional visit. So if Jane visited your site on Tuesday, and then Jane came to your site again on Wednesday, she would be you would have one visitor on Tuesday and one visitor on Wednesday, but your total unique visitors would only be one because it was the same person. So that's really important when looking at the reach of your content and your blog viewership, because when you hear people saying hits or page views or visits or anything like that, it can be very, very misleading, because if one person visited the site 100 times, that's 100 visits. So they could say, wow, my blog has been visited 100 times, but it might have only reached one unique visitor, one individual. Page view is when a specific page of your site is loaded by the browser. So each time a visitor clicks to another page, it counts as an additional page view. And unique page views tells you the number of unique pages that a visitor has viewed. It does not count repeat visits to a single page. So if a person refreshes the page or clicks forward and then clicks back, it's important to look at the unique page views to get a sense of the breadth of the content that they've looked at, rather than how many times they've looked at a piece of content. And the referring source is a really great one for folks who are actively promoting their blog. So a referring source is the page that linked to your page, and that's the page that the visitor came in on. So when thinking about data and metrics, you'll want to think about what's important to you as a blogger and plan ahead. It's good to set goals for your blog and define your success as a blogger. Then you'll know when you're doing well and how you can improve as time goes on. So some examples of goals you could ask yourself are, do I want to get more visitors, more page views, or have readers spend more time on my site? Once you decide your goals, you'll be able to better track your progress against them. So Jackie, what's your main goal for the MS blog?
For that blog, my biggest goals are to increase the amount of hits we haven't been really active on it, so I feel like we've lost a lot of our readers. So I'd like to bring them back, but also I'd like to increase the amount of comments we get and get people to interact with the blog a little bit more. I feel like this also can be tied into interacting and getting more fans on our Facebook page, but I'm sure that's a whole nother webinar for another day.
That's a lot to bite off, so we'll start with just getting more general hits and traffic. So we have a screenshot here of the Google Analytics dashboard, and it has this great dashboard to give you a quick snapshot of how you're doing. You can set the date period in the upper right-hand corner, and then view metrics for a certain period of time. The dashboard gives you a quick glimpse at the number of visits or hits that your blog got during that period, as well as the bounce rate, time on site, and number of page views. So this is a great place for bloggers to start. It's not too overwhelming, and it's a really powerful kind of way to benchmark how you're doing.
Those are really good points, Andrew. I feel like the dashboard is a good place for people just to get a good overview of what's going on in their blog. And from that slide, you can see there's not a whole lot going on my blog these days because my hits are down. But back to those terms, when you look at the bounce rate on a blogging site, you can see that it's pretty high. I mean, for any other site, upper 60s is a really high bounce rate, but bloggers tend to not care about that bounce rate because it means most people are just coming in and reading the homepage, which on a blog is where all the information is, right?
Yeah, there are a few different ways to think about that. As your blog accumulates more posts, people will begin to find you in the search engines and come directly to posts in your archive. And in that situation, a bounce rate would not necessarily be a good thing because you're hoping that folks would come to an older article and then click to some of your newer content too. So they might engage with, have a few different page views and consume more of your blog. Whereas if they're a regular reader of your blog and they come to the homepage, then you can make the argument that because they're a regular reader, they'd already seen all the previous articles, in which case a bounce rate would be, as you've said, not a concern because you're still reaching all of the people that you want to with all the content. So yeah, visitors can tell you a lot about your blog, like how well your content is doing, how well you've been promoting on your posts on social networks. There's a section of Google Analytics dedicated to getting more information on who is visiting your site, like how many unique visitors there were and how many of those visitors were new readers. What do you want to know about your blog visitors, Jackie?
I find where people are coming to my blog from to be most interesting, including geographically as well as how they're getting referred there from the web. And for my goal, I feel like it's really important to know where these people are coming from, specifically what their referrers are or their keywords when they search. How do I find that stuff out?
That's a great question. I think one that's going to be popular with a lot of our health activist bloggers. So this is something a lot of people want to know, and it's actually really easy to figure out. So start by going to the Traffic Sources tab of your Google Analytics page. It'll show you here the default sources for all visits during that period. This might be helpful to use to compare to new visits. But what we really want to do is figure out where your new visitors are coming from. So there's this great tool up in the right-hand corner called Advanced Segments. If you click on that, you can change the selection from all visits to new visits and see the traffic sources for all the new visitors during that period. So you can see that while most of your visits do come from referring sites, there's even more this is even more common for new visitors. In this case, it'd be valuable to scroll down in your traffic sources overview and see what types of websites are giving you the most traffic, and then investigating a link exchange, guest post, or something else to get yourself more coverage on similar sites. It can also be helpful to take a look at the keywords section under traffic sources. This will tell you what people are typing into search engines that brings them back to your site.
I've done a lot of research on the keywords that people are using to get to my site in the past, and sometimes I've noticed that what they're searching for and how they page actually have nothing to do with what I'm writing about. Do you have any advice or anything about helping to get more readers who are actually interested in what I'm writing about?
Yeah, a lot of bloggers don't spend a lot of time optimizing their site for search, which is understandable because SEO can be really tricky. We'll save that for another webinar, but for those who are really interested in getting going on that, I'd recommend checking out SEOmoz.org. That's SEOMOZ.org. They've got some great resources and tools, and we'll give you a free trial. HubSpot at HubSpot.com also offers a few SEO tutorials for free. And lastly, there are plugins and extras for your blog that help you integrate SEO keywords into each blog post as you write them.
That's a good suggestion, Andrew. Earlier, we had talked about using different blogging platforms, and I know that my metrics seem to vary a lot depending on which platform I'm using and which analytics service I'm using, and the inconsistencies are drastically different. Why is that?
That's a great question, Jackie. This is the really tricky part of analytics. Imagine that you go to a website and you read a really long article, but don't click anything else. You're just scrolling through the article. The website has no way of knowing if you're still there reading or if you've left the site completely. So all analytics have a defined time period after which they reset a visit. For some services, if you don't click on anything else for 5 minutes, they'll think of the next click as another visit. For other services, that time period might be 20 minutes or even in some cases an hour. Unfortunately, there's not a standard set just yet.
I've noticed some other inconsistencies too. Visitors being lumped into one city or one region when I know that they're coming from other places.
That's another great point. It can be helpful and tricky to track your visitor's location. Visitors are often lumped into the city where their internet service provider is located. So all AOL traffic might come from New York City and Virginia, which drives us all crazy when we're trying to figure out our analytics. And a lot of the time where they come from will be relatively close to their location, but sometimes it isn't and can definitely skew results.
This has been really helpful to hear about Google Analytics, especially if people are unfamiliar with it. I know that you said analytics is really good for tracking new visitors, keywords, and location, and all of those kind of things. But what do you think is the best thing you've been able to use or been able to learn or know with Google Analytics?
Oh, that's a hard question and a great question to ask a numbers person. So for me, one of the best things I've learned to do is to track our analytics and make changes based on what we see. For instance, we track where people stop watching a video. So when they stop watching or participating, we can use that information to make videos that are shorter, or to, if they're filling out a form, we also can track that. So if the form is really long, we'll put a little keep going teaser in there saying, remember, this form is really important to fill out. So the analytics just gives us a great amount of insight into people's behavior. And when you're making a site that you want people to spend time on and content you want people to read or watch, it's really important to keep your audience in mind. And since you can't exactly ask every person who comes to your site what they will like, using analytics will measure a lot of that. Then you can really keep your visitor's perspective in mind when new things are created. I'll tell you all a little more about how to do things like this when we do our next analytics tutorial.
Well, I'm really looking forward to trying out some of the stuff we talked about today when I finally switch this blog over to Tumblr. There was a lot of really good information, Andrew. I hope that it helps people who are starting out blogging, or even people who have been into blogging for a while, learn how to track their stats better using Google Analytics.
Well, thank you, Jackie, for letting us take a look at your blog analytics and sharing your story and information with all of us. If you guys have any questions that you'd like to see answered in the next installment of Health Activist How To, feel free to send us an email at editorial@wegohealth.com. Again, that's editorial@wegohealth.com, or tweet us at wegohealth. This was the beginning segment, so we've got lots more to cover. And we also wanted to share these additional resources with you to help you get started. Thanks for joining us.